Open with a cut. Sharp, unapologetic. Never explain yourself. Not once. Not when they ask, not when they accuse, not when your reputation teeters. The second you begin to explain, you hand them the microphone. You give them a map into your mind. You admit that what you did needs justification. You offer them the raw material they will use to bend the story to their advantage. This is not rudeness. This is strategy. This is Machiavelli, not the cartoon villain, but the forensic analyst of human leverage. He teaches us that power is not created by answers. Power is sustained by perception. And perception grows not from explanation, but from certainty. If you want to flip the power instantly, don't rationalize, recalibrate. The central idea is elegant and brutal. Explanations concede control. They create a space for interrogation, negotiation, and reinterpretation. When you explain yourself, you give people reasons to doubt, questions to ask, and narratives to control. But when you refuse to explain, when you pivot, assert, or simply remain composed, you force others to work to understand you. And in that work, they reveal themselves, their weaknesses, their agendas. Machiavelli wrote about appearances and effect. He knew rulers could never be pure. They could only be effective. Your single greatest asset in daily life, a relationship, a negotiation, a career, is not the truth about you, but the truth other people believe about you. Explanations often chip away at that belief. So we'll do 3 things in this script. 1. Understand why explanations erode power. 2. Learn exact tactics to refuse or redirect explanations without being petty. 3. Master the follow-through. How to repair or build status after silence. This is a practical, psychological, and ruthless manual you'll be able to use the moment someone pushes you. Why explaining weakens you? First, explanations invite dissection. They are an opening gambit. A person asks why, and you answer. Now they have nouns and verbs to grab, motives, justifications, caveats. Each clause is a foothold for doubt. The human brain loves causal chains. When you give someone a chain, they will pull it apart to see where it breaks. If the chain is long, they'll find a weak link. If the chain is modest, they'll invent additions that make it seem worse. Second, explanations presume you owe clarity. That presumption is a transfer of moral weight. If you must explain, the implication is you have to defend. To defend is to be under attack. Even if the question is casual, why did you do X? The act of answering frames you as someone who must justify actions. That's status lost. Third, explanation equals vulnerability. When you explain, you expose the why, your beliefs, your fears, your calculations. People who want to influence you will use that knowledge. People who want to undermine you will weaponize it. Your explanation becomes both instruction manual and testimony. And finally, explanations create complexity. Simplicity is power. The world prefers clear, decisive actors. When you explain, you complicate your image. You become negotiable. People prefer dealing with clarity, even if it is wrong. Never explain to be liked. Explain to be understood only when it serves you. The Machiavellian alternative. What to do instead. This is not about being impolite or evasive for its own sake. It is about maintaining the upper hand without turning everything into a battle. There are precise moves that flip the power back to you while keeping the conversation under your control. 1. The non-answer pivot. Example line, "That's not important right now," or "Let's focus on the outcome." How it works. You refuse the premise. You move the conversation to results and outcomes, where power resides. People asking questions are usually fishing for control. If you refuse to bite, they must either change course or signal weakness. 2. The short declarative, example line, "Because I decided so," or "Because it needed doing." How it works. A short, confident statement closes the loop. It denies them the chance to analyze motives. People respect, and often prefer, apparent decisiveness. It's less transparent, more authoritative. 3. The reframe. Example line, "What we should be asking is whether this works." How it works. You reposition the frame. Instead of answering why, you answer what now. This flips the burden from you to the group. It turns critics into participants. 4. The minimal empathy. Example line, I hear you and I won't be changing this decision. How it works. You acknowledge feelings to diffuse social friction, then close. It's courteous but firm. You show you're not immune to others, but you remain sovereign. 5. The question return. Example line, and how would you have handled it? How it works. You mirror the inquisitor and put pressure back on them. Now they must defend or propose, which often reveals gaps in their own position. 6. The strategic silence. Example line, none, a composed, unblinking pause. How it works. Silence is a tool. It makes people uncomfortable. Most will rush to fill it, often revealing their uncertain motives or softening their stance. Use these moves deliberately. Each is a refusal to hand your interior life across the table. Each is a claim to a centered self that acts, not explains. Practical script for everyday use. Lines to use. When criticized at work. I appreciate the feedback. The decision stands for now. We'll measure the result and adjust. When asked for a personal justification, I made the choice that was necessary. That's a private calculation. When interrogated by a partner or friend, I understand why you're upset. I won't be arguing about it now. I can explain later, but right now we need to handle this. In negotiations, my price stands. I won't enter into a breakdown of costs. You're welcome to make a counteroffer. I won't be explaining my margins. When a rumor swirls, I don't engage rumors. Facts when they're presented, or simply no comment. These are not meant to be cold. Tone matters more than words. Calm, steady, unhurried delivery will signal you are not threatened. People prefer to follow someone who gives them certainty. Why this is not the same as lying or stonewalling. Refusing to explain is not the same as hiding evidence. Lying or being cruel. It is a boundary. Machiavelli would remind you that rulers maintain order. Sometimes that requires discretion. Discretion is not dishonesty. It is a tactical assessment. Telling the entire interior story is rarely necessary for cooperation. There is a moral line, though. If your silence causes real harm, legal, financial, physical, you must address it. This technique is about social and psychological leverage, not about evading responsibility when it matters. Use refusal to explain to preserve your leverage, not to avoid accountability. When stakes are high, provide proof, not a narrative. Proof is irrefutable. Explanations are negotiable. Common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Pitfall 1. Overuse, turning every refusal into a habit that looks evasive. Fix, selectivity. Refuse explanations when motive is immaterial. Be transparent where trust requires it. Pitfall 2. Being cold when warmth is required. Fix, use minimal empathy. Say, I know this is frustrating, before closing the subject. Pitfall 3. Sounding arrogant or dismissive. Fix, ground your refusal in purpose. I'm focused on the outcome is better than, I don't care what you think. Pitfall 4. Backtracking when pressured. Fix, prepare an escalator. If pushed, move from declarative to proof. Short statement, arrow evidence. Arrow action step. Don't spiral into storytelling. Pitfall 5. Confusing privacy with secrecy. Fix, offer timelines. I can't explain now, I will discuss this after the facts are in. That maintains control while staying accountable. Real-world examples. Brief case studies. The manager. A manager orders a difficult restructuring. Teams clamor for reasons. The manager provides two things. A short declarative, this is to ensure we are competitive, and a roadmap of outcomes. We will measure X, Y, Z over 90 days. She refused to deconstruct every motive and instead gave clarity about consequences. The result? People rallied because they had targets, not stories. The negotiator. A seller refuses to bargain by explaining costs. He states price, offers a single concession, and then asks the buyer for their best offer. The buyer, having no foothold into the seller's margins, must choose: accept, counter, or walk. The seller retains leverage, the personal relationship. Someone is confronted about a late-night message. Instead of explaining the sequence of decisions, the reply is, "I understand why you're hurt. I will not discuss the details here. Let's talk tomorrow when we can calmly resolve this." The pause prevents an argument spun by half-truths and gossip and opens a space for intentional repair. How to practice a short drill routine. 1. The mirror drill. Stand before a mirror and answer 3 invasive questions with the shortest declarative you can. Notice the discomfort. Practice until the discomfort becomes neutral. 2. The pause drill. In conversation, intentionally hold silence for 3 seconds before responding. Let others fill it. Observe what they reveal. 3. The pivot drill. When asked why, reply with, "What matters more right now is," and steer the conversation back to impact. Practice shifting focus smoothly. 4. The accountability drill. Pair refusal with an accountability device. Timelines, metrics, actions. This prevents the perception of avoidance and reinforces competence. Practice makes the posture natural. You will not be cold, you will be composed. When to explain, the exceptions that require clarity. When truth prevents harm. If refusing to explain leads to danger, explain. When legal or professional obligations demand transparency. When long-term trust is on the line and the relationship is more valuable than short-term leverage. When the explanation is a tool for negotiation rather than surrender, for example, revealing a non-sensitive piece of information to build credibility. In short, explain when the long-term return is greater than the short-term cost. Closing. The ethical engine under the tactic Machiavelli's world is often misread as a license for cruelty, but the deeper reading is about efficacy. To refuse to constantly expose your inner life is also to protect others, to keep decisions stable, to avoid chaos driven by gossip, and to preserve the conditions under which systems function. Power without responsibility is tyranny. Power with explanation without restraint is weakness. The art you choose is to be decisive, and to choose silence as a disciplined policy, not a habit of cowardice. Remember, people will try to drag you into explanations because explanations are where arguments live. If you must explain, provide evidence. If you must defend, define the terms. Otherwise, refuse the premise, redirect the energy, and set the outcome. Final lines for the video finish: strong, memorable, repeatable. Never explain yourself to prove worth. Explain when it serves an honest purpose. Choose your battles. Keep your mind and your words scarce. Scarcity is value. The fewer your explanations, the clearer your authority. The more you talk to justify, the more you give away. If you want to flip the power, stop explaining. Start deciding. And there is a hidden truth most people never realize. When you explain, you are not speaking to clarify. You are begging for acceptance. And once you beg, you are already beneath the one who listens. This is the invisible hierarchy of human interaction. The one who asks holds the whip. The one who answers bows. Machiavelli knew this, which is why he insisted a ruler must never justify his actions to his subjects. To explain is to descend from the throne into the crowd. To stay silent is to remind them that the throne is not negotiable. But this rule is not limited to kings and princes. It applies to your daily life. In the workplace, when colleagues demand to know the logic behind your every move, explaining makes you look uncertain, as if you don't even trust your own judgment. In relationships, when you fall into long speeches defending yourself, you lose the aura of strength that made you attractive in the first place. Among friends, when you justify your absence, your choices, your silence, you slowly train them to treat you as someone who seeks permission instead of someone who commands respect. The cruel paradox is this: the more you explain, the less people believe you. Why? Because explanations sound like excuses. A guilty man talks too much, but a man who is sure of himself does not need to be understood by all. He knows his actions speak louder than any speech. Silence or the refusal to enter their frame radiates conviction. Even if people disagree, they feel an unconscious respect for someone who is unshaken by opinion. Now let us go deeper into the psychology of why this works. People crave certainty more than truth. Certainty comforts them. Truth often unsettles them. When you refuse to explain, you project certainty. Your words are sharp, minimal, complete. There is no space for debate, and because humans hate uncertainty, they fill the silence with their own assumptions. But notice this, they usually fill it with assumptions that favor you, because to believe you are weak would make them feel unsafe. It is safer for them to imagine you as powerful. This is why kings could give decrees with a single sentence. This is why leaders who answer questions with calm brevity always appear stronger than those who ramble. This is why even in personal life, a calm "because I chose so" has more weight than a 20-minute explanation about your motives. But here lies the true genius of Machiavelli. Never explaining yourself does not mean being mute. It means controlling the battlefield. You decide when to speak, how much, and for what purpose. Every word is a weapon, not a weakness. The masses may demand answers, but the wise man knows that authority is not earned by feeding their hunger. Authority is earned by denying it, making them chase you, making them lean forward into the silence you leave behind. So, the next time you feel cornered, when someone presses you for reasons, stop yourself. Feel the urge to explain rise, then kill it. Replace it with a calm statement of fact or a simple redirection. Train yourself to let silence be your shield. Because in that silence, in that refusal, you have already flipped the power. And the greatest irony is this: those who demand explanations will later respect you more for not giving them. People do not admire those who justify, they admire those who stand firm. Even if they never admit it out loud, in their minds they know the one who never explains is the one they cannot control. Think about how the world really works. At every corner, there are people fishing for your reasons. They ask questions not because they care about the truth, but because they want to measure you, to test the boundaries of your confidence, to pull you into their orbit. They know that once you start explaining, you begin unraveling the thread of your authority. And if you keep unraveling, one day, you'll find yourself completely naked before them. Stripped of the mystery, stripped of the aura, stripped of the quiet power that once protected you. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago. He saw how rulers lost their crowns not in battle, but in words. The moment a prince descended into justifying his policies, he ceased to be feared and began to be judged. And judgment is fatal to power. Judgment puts you on trial before the court of public opinion, and in that court, you can never win, because the mob does not want truth, it wants blood. In your life, the same principle applies. When you sit across from your boss and spill your reasons for every decision, you invite doubt. When you over-explain to a lover why you acted a certain way, you don't calm them. You feed their suspicion. When you justify your absence to friends, you don't earn their loyalty. You give them evidence to mock you later. Explanation always feels like weakness because it exposes something too human: insecurity. And humans, though they live with it, despise seeing it in others. The brutal law is this: strength is silent, weakness is noisy. The oak tree does not explain why it stands tall, it simply stands. The lion does not explain why it hunts, it simply hunts. The river does not justify its direction, it simply flows. The human who wishes to be respected must mirror this natural law. Say little, act much. Cut off the excess words that leak power. But let us go deeper, because silence is not just a shield. It is an active weapon. When you refuse to explain, you create an aura of unpredictability. People hate what they cannot categorize. And when they cannot categorize you, they begin to treat you with caution. They tread carefully because they don't know which version of you they will face. That caution is power in your hands. The mysterious man or woman is always feared more than the one who spills every motive and thought. There is also another hidden benefit. When you stop explaining, you begin listening. The less you speak, the more others reveal. They will rush to fill the silence you leave. They will expose their fears, their doubts, their own explanations, while you remain unreadable. Imagine a negotiation. One side explains why they need the deal, their pressures, their deadlines. The other side simply nods, calm, silent. Who holds the leverage? The one who says less. Because the less you say, the less they can use against you. And here is something most people never notice. Explanation destroys time. The more you explain, the longer you stay stuck in the past. Why you did this, why you didn't do that, why you chose this path. But power lives in the present and future. When you cut explanation, you free yourself from the prison of the past. You stop defending history and start commanding destiny. That is the true meaning of Machiavelli's advice. Do not waste words on what is already done. Direct words toward what you will make happen next. Now some will argue, but if I never explain, won't people think I am cold, arrogant, uncaring? The answer is simple. People already think what they want. Your explanations do not change their mind, they only give them ammunition. If someone wants to believe you are cruel, they will twist your explanations into proof of cruelty. If someone wants to believe you are wise, your silence will look like wisdom. People project their own beliefs onto your words. By explaining, you give them paint to smear your image. By refusing, you force them to paint from their imagination. And imagination often flatters those who remain mysterious. Machiavelli would remind us, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the deeper lesson is this: it is better to be respected than to be understood. Respect comes from strength, and strength comes from not bending under the demand to justify. So how do you practice this in daily life? The answer is discipline. Every time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Count 3 breaths. Replace the explanation with either silence or a decisive statement. For example, instead of saying, I didn't call because I was busy with work, then I had this problem, just say, I was occupied. It won't happen again. Instead of saying, I sent the report late because my internet was down, then my computer froze. Just say, the report is done. You'll have it now instead of saying, I didn't come to the party because I felt tired and honestly I was stressed, and just say, I couldn't make it. Short, clear, final. That's the Machiavellian way. And soon you will notice something extraordinary. People stop pressing you. They stop interrogating you. They stop demanding explanations. Why? Because you have trained them. You have shown them that you are not the type to bend under questioning. You have flipped the power dynamic so completely that even their minds adjust. They will begin offering you explanations instead. They will justify themselves to you without you even asking. That is the ultimate reversal of power. Think about that. A life where people rush to explain themselves, while you remain unshaken, concise, mysterious. This is not arrogance. This is mastery. This is the art of ruling your own image, the art of appearing unmovable, the art of making your silence louder than their words. And once you master it, you will see why Machiavelli's trick works instantly. Because the human mind respects what it cannot penetrate. The less you reveal, the more power you project. The more you explain, the more you shrink. So choose. Either live as an open book that everyone scribbles in, or live as a closed manuscript that no one dares to touch. Never explain yourself. Speak less. Decide more. And you will watch the world bend to your silence.